Welcome back. It's Relationships at Work, your leadership guide to building workplace connection and avoiding blind spots. I'm your host, Russell Wallaker, a communications and leadership expert with a couple of decades in both areas and a whole heap of curiosity on how we can make the workplace better. If you're a leader trying to understand and improve your impact on work culture and the employee experience, well, you are on the right track. You're in the right place. This is a mini episode. It's just a quick, valuable bit of information to help you in your mindset for the week ahead. Usually about 10 minutes or so, sometimes less, sometimes a touch more, but I try to keep it brief. Speaking of brief, let's get into it. The topic today, take yourself for a spin and test drive your own values. So, what are your values? Odds are you've been asked that question before, probably during some kind of leadership training or workshop, maybe even early in your career. We've all been through some form of this. And you probably walked away with a list that had like family, integrity, respect, growth, accountability, empathy, kindness, all the words, all the good words. Well, some version of that anyway. And you know what? That's great. That exercise, super important. It gives us a sense of what matters to us at a personal level. What we hold tight when we make decisions, when we lead others, when we show up to work each day. Important stuff. But here's the problem with all of that. Most of us never revisit that. Sure, we do that values exercise early in our career and then that's it. We defined them. They're done, right? But we never ask follow-up questions like, are they still showing up in how I work? Or have I just assumed they are? Today we're talking about values, but not in the usual define them kind of way. You've already done those exercises. This is about testing the values you've already defined and how to know when they're aligned or when they're being challenged, dismissed, or just slowly being chipped away from. Because values, like people, evolve. And if we're not paying attention, we might be living out of sync with our own integrity without even realizing it. So let's start here. One of the biggest superpowers I've talked about as a leader is having self-awareness. The other one, situational awareness. Now, knowing yourself and knowing how you show up in the environment you're part of, values sits at the heart of both of those. Self-awareness is knowing what you value, what you stand for. Situational awareness is understanding how those values interact with the people around you, the culture you're a part of, and how others' values show up alongside yours. But we run into a problem when we start assuming. We assume our values haven't changed. We assume the organization's values haven't changed. We assume that the alignment we felt 5, 10, 15 years ago when we did those values exercises are still the same now. But life happens. We experience new things. We grow. Our circumstances change. And unless we stop to check, we don't always notice when we've drifted or when the culture around us has. So how do you actually test your values at work? Let me walk you through a few ideas, okay? It's not a checklist or anything. These are just places to maybe pause and reflect. First, let's reassess the actions, not just the statements. It's super easy to look at the company website, the office wall, the internal newsletter, and see a list of values. They all sound great: trust, collaboration, innovation, inclusion. But values aren't what an organization says, they're what an organization does. Look at how decisions are made. Look at how employees are treated, especially in moments of tension or stress. Think about COVID, for that matter. Look at how your organization interacts with its customers, its partners, the people they say that it serves. If the actions don't reflect the words on the poster, on the website, in the newsletter, that is a big sign. Not just of misalignment in the company, but possibly misalignment with you. Second, reassess your emotional and moral responses to key decisions. This is where that self-awareness really matters. How do you feel when your organization makes a decision on a tough issue? Something around leadership behavior, diversity and inclusion, sustainability, ethics. If you're frustrated, conflicted, or uncomfortable with those decisions that others make, that's not just bad vibes. That's your values tapping you on the shoulder going, you may want to pay attention here. The bigger the discomfort, the bigger the potential of disconnect. We like to believe we're rational creatures, but when it comes to values, we often feel the misalignment before we can articulate it. Trust that instinct and maybe sit in it, examine it. And last, notice when you're asked to compromise. Values are most visible when they're under pressure, and often that pressure shows up as compromise. Think about how your organization handled tough situations like COVID, return to office demands, layoffs, public crises. But instead of only watching what leadership do, ask yourself, were you asked to go along with something that didn't feel right? Did you stay quiet to keep the peace? Did you lead a decision that made you uncomfortable? Now, I should stress, this isn't about blame. This isn't about pointing fingers at what other people are or aren't doing. It's about recognition. Because when your values are in alignment, those tough situations, they might still be challenging, but they won't feel like you're betraying yourself. Misalignment shows up when you're repeatedly asked to make trade-offs that conflict with your own sense of fairness, integrity, accountability, and you walk away from those moments feeling unsettled. So, what if your values don't align anymore? It gets personal. That misalignment doesn't automatically mean it's time to quit or walk away either. But it does mean it's time to ask some serious questions of yourself. Is this a systemic issue or the result of a few individuals? Is there space to talk about it with HR, with your manager, your peers, your leadership? Is this just a bad season? Or is it the culture now? Is just this the way that it is? Are there allies you have who share your values and want to do something about it? It's always nice to have like-minded people that you can connect with. Can you live with this misalignment? Or is it compromising your integrity? And then you get to the big question. Should you stay or should you go? Now, I don't mean these questions to be dramatic, because they don't have to be. It's just really about being honest. Because the longer we stay in places that don't reflect what we stand for, the more we kind of lose ourselves in it. And the more we lose the trust of those we lead, because they see it. They see our leaders feeling misaligned, disconnected. Leadership is about showing up with clarity, and that clarity starts with asking, do my values still belong here? Are they still aligned? So maybe today's the day to take your values down off the shelf, dust them off, hold them up, look them in the eye, and ask, am I aligned, or have I just been assuming I am? And I'll leave it there with that big, bold, hairy question. That will do it for a mini episode of Relationships at Work, your leadership guide to building workplace connections and avoiding blind spots. I'm your host, Russell. Thanks again for joining me for this mini episode. I hope it gives you a moment to reflect and think, because we all have values. It's just a matter of how valuable we treat them. And the more we ignore them, the more misaligned that we're going to feel. You take care, and I'll talk to you again soon.